Not too long now before the All Blacks will leave New Zealand to start their Northern Tour for 2024. They have 5 games planned during that Northern Tour, and it's going to be a very intense, a very exciting, and I'm sure a very entertaining period of rugby. In this video, I'm going to go through the All Blacks squad for that particular tour and just give you my thoughts around those players that have been selected. So let's get into it right now. G'day everyone and welcome to Inside Rugby with Mark. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark. I'm a retired Kiwi bloke. I'm a huge rugby fan and I live here in beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Now I'm going to be talking about the All Blacks Northern Tour today and particularly focusing on the squad that Scott Robertson has named to go on that Northern Tour. They've got 5 games to play in a very intensive schedule, and I'm going to be looking at that during this video as well. But let's start off by looking at the All Blacks squad that has been selected. A few interesting names there, and perhaps in your opinion there's been a few that have been left out as well. So let's start off in the forwards, and we'll have a look first of all at the 3 hookers that have been selected to go on this tour. And we're going to start off with Asafa Amua, then we've got Cody Taylor, and then we've got George Bell. So I think that's probably the best of the crop that the All Blacks could select at the moment. Cody Taylor had a brilliant rugby championship in my opinion, and Asafa Amua had some good patches as well. Still needs to lift his game, I think, in terms of coming in off the bench. And then as far as George Bell goes, well, I just hope he gets some game time. And as for all of these players that seem to be on the peripheral of the All Blacks top team at the moment. Scott Robertson has picked 6 props to go on this tour, so let's have a look at them right now. It's Ethan de Groot, Tyrell Lomax, Fletcher Newell, Tossie, Tuanga Fussy and Tamaiti Williams. So I think that's a pretty good propping combination no matter which ones you put on the field. Good to see Fletcher Newell back in there again as well. Tossie did some great stuff in the Rugby Championship. I think Ethan de Groot is playing as well as I've ever seen him play. Tamaiti Williams is exciting, isn't he? And he's really making an impact coming in off the bench, but expect him to probably get a start in a couple of those games on the Northern Tour. So good props as far as I'm concerned. Let me know if there's anybody missing from that list that you would have in this team. Be interested to read that in the comments. Now moving on to the locks, and probably pretty predictable here as far as the locks go. We've got Scott Barrett, we've got Tupou Vai, Patrick Tuipulotu and Sam Dowry. So those are the locks that are going to be on the tour. Good to see Patrick Tuipulotu back in for the All Blacks. Tupou Vai was brilliant throughout the Rugby Championship, I thought. And Scott Barrett, like many of you have said in the comments of my previous videos, is he the real captain that New Zealand are looking for? Well, we're going to find out on this Northern Tour, aren't we, once and for all perhaps. Moving on to the loose forwards that are going on this tour, and we've got 7 of them named. And we start off with Ethan Blackadder, Sam Cane, Sapini Finau, Luke Jacobson, Dalton Papali'i, Adi Savia and Wallace Satiti. So pretty good loose forwards. I'd like to see the combinations that Robertson is going to use on this tour. A lot of you, like me, are calling out to give Satiti a chance at number 8. But interesting to listen to Scott Robertson talking in various press conferences how he sees those 3 back loose forward positions as interchangeable. So I think we're going to see Wallace Satiti at number 6 for now. And Sam Cane's been selected. Let me know what you think about Sam Cane going on this tour. I actually think it's a good thing. I think his experience and knowledge and know-how of touring is going to help the younger guys. He's also going to bring those experience to the big matches, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him play against England and Ireland at least. So that's what my thoughts are around Sam Cane. But I think he's definitely in this team because of the way that he's been playing towards the end of the Rugby Championship. He was very good. And even though he's leaving this All Black squad at the end of the year, I think to give him this Northern Tour and to be able to play at the level he is, I think is still a good thing for the New Zealand All Blacks. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Sam Cane should have gone on this Northern Tour with the All Blacks, or should there be somebody else that had got that opportunity? Okay, moving on to the backs now, and there was quite a few question marks in my mind in terms of some of these positions. So starting off at halfback, and Scott Robertson has decided to take 3 halfbacks on this tour, and we're going to see Cam Roigard coming back. Yes, he played an NPC game last weekend, went very well if you watched that game, and he's going to be back in the All Black jersey, and there's a lot of excitement around Cam Roigard, and he is a very good player, but we have to bear in mind he's only played 3, I think, or 4 times maximum for the All Blacks, and during those times he really showed his class, but he is a very limited experienced player when it comes to All Black play, so we're hoping that he does the stuff, but he's got a lot of talent. He went well last weekend, and we'll see him in the number 9 jersey on this tour for sure. And then we've got TJ Perenara and Cortez Ratama, and these are interesting selections for me. Not so much Ratama, I think he deserves absolutely to be there, but TJ Perenara with the New Zealand A team going over to Europe at the same time. Scott Robertson has decided to put Perenara in this All Black team, or squad I should say, and obviously for his experience. But if you've watched any of my videos on the All Blacks so far throughout the Rugby Championship, you'll know exactly what I feel about TJ Perenara. I would have liked to see Noah Hotham get a go in this squad, but he could still be called up if there is an injury, because we've got the New Zealand A team that's going to be in Europe at the same time as this All Black squad is going to be playing their games on the Northern Tour. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. But let me know if you're surprised to see TJ Perenara in the squad selected to go on the Northern Tour, or you thought he was a hands down selection to be there. Then moving on to the number 10s, and it's interesting here, we've seen Beauden Barrett and Damien McKenzie both named in this position. So that's going to be interesting again to see how they're used. And again, if you've watched my videos, you'll know my thoughts around both Beauden Barrett and Damien McKenzie being used at number 10 to start games for the All Blacks. Moving on to the centres, and Scott Robertson has selected 5 centres to go on this tour, and I can let you know now that Jordie Barrett is going on the tour. He appears to be fit, or will be fit and ready to go, and of course he's going to be vice captain in this New Zealand team as well. So Jordie Barrett's name is on the list for this squad. Then we've got David Havili, Rico Ioane, Anton Leonard-Brown and Billy Proctor. David Havili, for me, I'm not too sure. Let me know in the comments what you think. A lot of people think he's been playing well lately. I'm not a huge fan of David Havili, but he's in this squad and we'll have to see how he goes. So this whole centre pairing is going to be really interesting on this tour, how they get used. Will Billy Proctor finally get a go, or will it be just against Japan and Italy that we see Billy Proctor? And that's going to be one of the questions for me throughout this Northern Tour of the All Blacks. How is Scott Robertson going to use the squad? Is he going to give some of these guys an opportunity in these big games, or are we going to see the team that ended the Rugby Championship for the All Blacks trusted again against these big games of England, Ireland and France? We'll have to wait and see for that. And then moving on to the wings and the fullbacks for the squad for the All Blacks, and we have Caleb Clark, Will Jordan, Ruben Love is back in, Stephen Perifetta is back in, and then we've got Sevu Reece and Mark Talia. So great to see Stephen Perifetta and Ruben Love back in this selection, and I'm hoping once again, of all hopes, that these two get an opportunity throughout this Northern Tour and maybe in one of the big games as well. That was something that I'd really like to see Scott Robertson do, with a bit of rotation in the squad. So there we go, that's the squad that's been named for the All Blacks, and it's a very interesting squad as well. Plenty of experience there, with Sam Cane getting the nod to go in as flanker and TJ Perenara at halfback. Let me know what you think in the comments about the squad. Are there any players sitting back in New Zealand that deserve to be on that plane heading towards Japan in a week or so's time? I'd love to hear your views on that one. Now the big question mark for everybody is, how many of those games are the All Blacks going to win, lose or even draw on this Northern Tour? Let me know in the comments. I'd really like to know your opinions on how many games you think the All Blacks are going to win out of those 5 on their Northern Tour. And if they are going to lose any games, in your opinions, who are going to beat the All Blacks? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. So let's start off the chat by putting those notes down. Now, okay, so what is this Northern Tour actually looking like, and when are the games going to be played? Well, they start off the Northern Tour with a game against Japan. CEO of New Zealand Rugby, Mark Robertson, said in a recent interview that he thought this Japan game was going to be very hard for the All Blacks. So I think that's an interesting perspective to take, and one that just shows where the mentality is around this New Zealand All Black team at the moment. But that game's going to be played in Japan on October the 25th, and it's going to commence All Blacks Northern Tour this year. And then after that, they're going to head to England, and on the 2nd of November, the All Blacks will play against England at Twickenham, the newly named stadium called Allianz Stadium in London. And as all of us old rugby fans will keep calling it Twickenham, I'm sure, for years to come. And that's when the All Blacks are going to have to hit the ground running, because England are going to be ready for the All Blacks, despite everybody saying that England haven't had any warm-up games. They're going to go into this one cold. But I think England are going to be more than ready to take on this All Black team. So after the England game, the All Blacks will play Ireland just 6 days later at the Aviva Stadium in Dublin on November the 8th. That's going to be a cracker of a game, and again another opportunity to see whether we're going to see Scott Robertson rotate some of these players. Let me know in the comments if you think that's going to happen. So next up for the All Blacks, they'll travel to the Stade de France in Paris to take on the French team in the capital of France. And that will be a fantastic game, I'm sure, as well. And once again, it'll be interesting to see how that Scott Robertson manages his squad at this stage, particularly after the results that we're going to see from the England and Ireland game. That will be really fascinating to see, and something I'm really looking forward to on this particular tour. And then 1 week later, on November the 23rd, the All Blacks will travel to Turin in Italy to play their final game in this year's international campaign against the Italians in Turin, and that's going to be a great game as well. We might see some of those peripheral players finally get a game in the last game of the season, but that's going to be really interesting, that one against Italy as well. It'll be interesting to see how many All Blacks have been injured by that stage. Let's hope there's none, of course, but you never know, and this might be giving some of the other players a bit of an opportunity. So it's going to be a very exciting Northern Tour campaign by the All Blacks. You're going to be able to follow it all here on Inside Rugby with Mark. I'm going to give you previews to each of the games. I'll give you my in-depth analysis after the games and talk about everything else that's going on in between. Don't forget, we've also got Argentina, Australia and South Africa touring the north at this time of the year. So I'll be following all those games. There'll be a bumper crop of rugby for us to talk about and to watch on our screens across the world. Now, I would love you to join me here on Inside Rugby with Mark. Here's 5 ways that you can support me on this channel as I continue my journey as a hobbyist, YouTuber and rugby fanatic, talking about the great game here on YouTube. So if you can select one or more of these ways to support my journey, I would be very, very grateful for that. Plenty more content coming up in the near future. We've got all those other squads that are going to be named heading off on their northern tours. I'll bring you those as well. And then we'll get into the preps for the first round of games on the northern tours. So I'll see you again really soon here on Inside Rugby with Mark. Until then, you stay safe, stay well, keep enjoying your rugby no matter where you are in the world. And it's time to say adios from beautiful Cancun in Mexico. Until next time, it's bye for now.